Anyone knows when they need a new perspective on life, just go listen to RP. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome RP to the stage from Broken Bow, Nebraska.
Well, good evening. How about them Huskers? I missed the end of the game, but I heard the score, and that was pretty cool. I was on a different athletic adventure today. I was chasing my son Caleb around. He had a wrestling match at Valentine's, so we took the scenic route to Comstock, and it's nice to be here. I'm still trying real hard to get along with Caleb. I've kind of blew it with the other five, but he's the tail end, and if something was to happen to me right away, I kind of think he'd be in line to inherit the ranch, but it could be that I just haven't known him quite as long. As we were coming down from Ainsworth, we come by a nice little bunch of Pronghorn, and I hadn't seen in a group like that far east, and that was kind of cool, and it kind of reminded me of a poem I put together a while back when I could still ride broncs. We were hunting pronghorn near the border. That day was made to order, myself and two in-laws, both named Doug. With fair shooting and some good luck, they'd partnered on a nice buck, and when asked if I could pack it, I didn't shrug. For you see, my horse was seasoned, and as much as I had reasoned, I had hauled a loper in just one day past. My thinking had a flaw, and this I too soon saw, that doing something once is not a lesson that will last. The plan it was to straddle that carcass across my saddle, thread him with the swells, and then secure him tight, and I'm sitting in the seat with my mission near complete, when my pony sidestepped and launched us into flight. That goat's head on the fly nearly caught Doug in the eye. It was a moment I will not soon forget. The horn hit my mare's nose hard, and she blew snot about a yard, and then my pony did a pirouette. That loper hooked her fore and hooked her aft. If it was funny, no one laughed, but I thought I heard a mournful cry to warn. We were doing a version of Western Swing when in my ear a voice did ring, "RP, be careful not to break a horn." I had some reservation about the trophy's preservation. Survival now was foremost on my mind. I knew if I was to fall, I'd lose saddle, horse, and all, and I was looking for a way out of a bind. But I kept my tongue. It just made sense to choose my final utterance, for to my heavenly home I feared I'd go. At the time, I did realize I'd best not need apologize. What could have been my final words was simply, "Whoa!" We were at least halfway to the pearly gate, and that mare continued to agitate, a twist and churning mass of hide and fury. A lifetime of learning and a moment applied. I needed it all to take that ride. There was no time for planning or for worry. Deep in the seat I sank. The horn hit my pony's flank. I thought of my wife and the baby on the way. Using instinct to survive, I was glad to be alive. In that moment, I knew I was on to stay. Then something flipped the switch. That mare planted, quivered, and twitched, and Loper whacked her one more time and came to rest. I got the head secured. The only sound that could be heard was the demons beating tom-toms in my chest. My face split in a grin, for I had been allowed to win. I'd stared the Reaper in the eye, and he had flinched. And with a certain air of pride, we continued on our ride. My in-laws' admiration I had clinched. The sad ending, I'll confess, relates are sure tough to impress. I had made the ride of my life, I could have swore. A two-bit ride, they rated mine, scored my mount a 29 for a total of a measly 54. My story's moral you'll find true. Perspective shapes your point of view, and that's why the stories ain't all told the same. And them bugs hovering around the fire's warm glow, well, I'm sure they think they know the feelings of the moth that just landed in the flame. Thank you. Thank you. Well, Don, you've got a good idea videotaping this deal. That's what they do at all them shows. You've been to Branson. You know they every show they have down there, they videotape. Of course, if this was a Branson show, Marcy would be on her 5th outfit by now. I was down there at Silver Dollar City for a while, but I didn't get to stay very long because I didn't have enough shirts. So I spent the 2 weeks cleaning horse stalls for the trick horse trainer. So it was a good trip, and I had a good time and learned a lot about horses, and it was especially if you keep them in stalls. That's not something I'd ever done. But I was having, I don't know if my muscles are sore or what, but there was one night I was having trouble sleeping. And this would be a very youthful crowd in Branson. They draw to a senior group. But I was having trouble sleeping, and I thought I'd catch a late show in Branson. It was 9:30. And I went down to a theater kind of on the far edge of town there, and it was a sister group that does a cappella bagpipe music. And they combine it with Irish stomp dancing and a trapeze act. And that part was really hard to hear. But I think most of the people in the crowd was there just for the uniform changes. We got a big deal going next week, or election, and I'm just not tickled with our choices. We've got a fella that thinks he might be a god someday, and we've got one that thinks he already is. Don't. But either way, it's going to bring some changes. And there's lots of folks that probably might not vote for the guy that's in there, but they hate to keep the wife and the kids out in the street. But, she could stay around if the new guy got in, and she could be the second lady. And the other guy could marry his vice president. But the good news is that we've got a God that's going to be around a lot longer than either of them. Sometimes when I ride out here where it's quiet, I like to stop and see if I can hear the voices of the men who rode this trail ahead of me. I see the old foundations where homes and windmills used to stand, and I cannot help but wonder who were the folks that worked this land. They must have been dreamers, much like me, with dreams of a better life and another season. Now they're gone. Just these few bricks remain, and I don't know the reason. And I think of the men that came before the barbed wire fence and plow, and wonder if my ears could be good enough that I could hear the voices now. Perhaps they rode for Brent Olive, bringing Texas cattle up the Western Trail before the winter of 1880, before the Homestead Act and rail. And I wonder if the men before them who spoke in a different tongue, I do not know their names or tribes or how they raised their young, just that they lived off what the land provided, what they could take from the buffalo herd. The wind is moving through the blue stem, and I thought it spoke a word. Then I think of the men that I have known, of their conditions and their choices and the lessons they have taught me, and I can hear their voices. The voice of my granddad, who looked at death as an adventure, not a worry, and while he waited for his Savior's call, he built with his hands, he was in no hurry. And the man that broke mules for Uncle Sam, and others who have served their country well and then come home and never shared the memories they can't tell. Even though things didn't always work out just the way these men had planned, they thanked the Lord for the life they've had, living here close to the land. And then I seek the voice of my Maker, who links the future and the past, a beginning and an end, an anchor on this sea of grass, and wonder of the legacy I will leave to the ones who follow this trail I'm on when the wind has blown over the work I've done, and it will all be gone. Perhaps as I stand on this grassy hill, that wind will carry a voice, and we will know that every day here is a gift from the Lord. Friends, be thankful and rejoice. Thank you. Thank you. Well, I got to do my Christmas shopping a little early today. Beth bought me a new hat. That don't happen real often, but she didn't really care for the last one I bought, and that's been 8 years ago. Whenever my oldest daughter graduated from high school, and I wasn't really on a spending binge, I just wasn't sure I was going to live more than another couple weeks, and I thought a new hat would dress up the casket. I was a little beat up. I was heading up to Johnstown to help with the Rodeo Bible Camp, and I'd had a spell there at home riding the horse that Caleb rides now, but she rides lots better now than she did then, and she'd taken a quick sidestep on me. It was 7 years ago, because I remember how old I was then, and I was thinking that I didn't know you could get hurt without hitting the ground. But if your right foot is next to your right ear and it's still in the stirrup, it's probably going to hurt. And I had what they call a pulled groin. I was black and blue from my kneecap to my navel, and they hurt. But the show must go on, and we had done our branding, and I'd seen a calf with a navel infection, and I'd talked to my good friend Dr. Rice there in Broken Bow, who hadn't been back in Broken Bow practicing all that long, and somewhere in his other travels he had apparently studied Eastern medicine because he'd become an acupuncturist. Because he told me this calf needed 5 shots a day for 5 days in a row. To me, that is acupuncture. And I had, wanting my leg to grow back on, had gone to riding broke horses. But even my broke horses are used to me firing a few warning shots before I actually catch anything on the end of my rope. By day 5, my roping was improving, which turned out to be a bad thing. And I caught on the first throw, and it startled my horse. And she'd only bucked a couple times before I decided the ground had to feel better. But I didn't want to have to catch that calf again, so I didn't let go. I just let myself eject, and then the calf left, and I sort of didn't make a very smooth landing. Landed flat on my back, cracked 3 ribs, and I wasn't feeling very good, and I couldn't breathe. But I went ahead and got the calf tied down, because fortunately I was wearing my piggin string. Got the calf's legs tied together, still hadn't been able to breathe. And I said, Lord, this was a really good time to talk to God. I said, Lord, if I don't start breathing pretty quick, this is going to look like Cowboy CSI. People are going to wonder how that dead cowboy tied that calf down. I looked really authentic limping into Johnstown Rodeo Bible Camp. They thought I was one of them. Other than they couldn't figure out why I couldn't ride any better and kept getting hurt. Because kids never get hurt. They're invincible. Don and I help a Rodeo Bible camp in Mason City, and it's been fun. He let me be the judge last year. I thought there was no way my son could not win a buckle with his brother and his dad judging, but I was wrong. That other ornery little whelp rode clear to the whistle. But it's a great ministry opportunity. You've got those 12-year-old kids on a bronc or a steer for the first time in their life, and you're ready to pull the chute gate open, and you say, young man, if you were to die in the next 8 seconds, do you know where you're spending eternity? It's a teachable moment. But then they get a couple of years down the road, and they're pretty sure that they're bulletproof, and then they're a little harder to reach. So you kind of got to take your shot when you got it. And some of us take a little longer to reach, and I was one of those. I've got so much to be thankful for, and I just like doing thankful kind of poems because I am a blessed man. I've got a wonderful family and a couple jobs I really like a lot, and it's a good life, and one of the biggest blessings is all the friends I've got to make over the years since the Lord's allowed me to do this cowboy poetry. It's just been a great ride, and I am very, very grateful. And I'm grateful for the rain that's going to come one of these days. And I know it's going to come because it has happened before. There's nothing I like better than a good, slow, soaking rain. There is one crop that it brings up that I cannot explain. When I head out to saddle, seems it seldom fails. Laying there on top of the ground is another crop of nails. Why, they will sprout in places I don't recall a building ever standing. After a rain in any season, fall weaning or spring branding, where do those rusty relics come from, scattered hither to yon? Logic says they are remains of a past not that long gone. Logic is often overrated. In the theory that I'm sowing, my ranch don't raise a lot of grass. It's rusty nails that we're growing. They are all bent and battered, of no use I know. I would love to see that ranch where the new nails grow. Maybe it's more like a farm where they sprout in shiny row, how they would glisten in the dew at sun's first morning glow. Do they harvest to match the penny, or are things that well planned? Will your field grow to railroad spikes if you get a thinner stand? Do you wreck the tires on the swather if you drive over the crop? Do horseshoe nails grow further west? My questions just won't stop. There's many complications. Timing is important. This might come as a jolt. You've got to clip your nails early because you don't want them to bolt. You're good. There's many complications when the nail crop you're raising. I know from my experience they are no good for grazing, for when they are ingested, they follow their own path, a trait that does not work well on a mama cow's behalf. As I ponder diversification, it might not be that great. My land is geared for grazing. Raising nails would be my fate. The rain could come at the wrong time, and a loss I'm realizing. 2,000 acres hit by rust because I was too slow galvanizing. Let's forget about raising nails. It is straining on my brain. I will handpick the ones I find and be thankful for the rain. Thank you. Thank you. It's almost fall. I'll make the call to rent the drill that I will fill with the purchase seed that we will need to plant the treated kale. The tractor's hooked up to the baler, picked up, still hitched to the trailer. We'll need them both to start the growth of the purchase seed that we will need for the rented drill that I will fill, because it's almost fall and I must not stall the planting of the treated kale. We keep the trailer to haul the sheep with the pickup I need to get the seed. The sheep need to go to market today because they're out of eats and in the way because the weed on which they feed's in short supply, for it's been dry. In this dilemma, I must choose for which task I will use the pickup I need to get the seed for the rented drill that I will fill, because it's almost fall and I must not stall the planting of the triticale. Since it's been dry, I must also try to start the motor that runs the well, and fuel is high, I'm here to tell. Then I'll water some hay that will grow someday, get some twine to keep in line this harvested forage that the cows will dine. My neighbor will swath and I will bale, hope that this machine don't fail. If my line of credit and crop don't freeze, this ranching life is full of ease. Unhook the baler and trailer too, keep at this task until I'm through, because it's almost fall, I must not stall the planting of the triticale. It's supper time. I share a rhyme. It makes folks smile and they pay by the mile, and this might sound funny, but I use that money to buy the fuel that runs the well, because fuel is high, I'm here to tell. Then I'll water some hay that will grow someday and get some and keep in line the harvested forage that the cows will dine. My neighbor was, I said that line already. How could I get confused on a simple little rhyme like this, Don? I don't know how, I've never had that happen to me before. It's supper time. I share a rhyme, makes folks smile, they pay by the mile. This might sound funny, but I use that money to buy the fuel that, now I remember where I'm at. I could use the trailer to get the seed. Well, there's a plan. Well, yes, indeed. Go get the seed. Go get it today. I'll check some cattle on the way. My horse is saddled. Check the cows. Too little time Cowboy allows. When cow is ill, she gets a pill and a trailer ride to the other side. And now the trailer must be cleaned. The grass is short. The calves need weaned, but not today. Back to plan A. The pickup I need to get the seed for the rented drill that I will fill, because it's almost fall and I must not stall the planting of the triticale. It's supper time. I share a rhyme. It makes folks smile. They pay by the mile. This might sound funny. I use that money to buy the fuel to run the well, because fuel is high, I'm here to tell. Then I'll water some feed that the cow will need, the one that was ill, and got the pill, and the trailer ride to the other side. In the pickup we used to haul the sheep that felt abused, because the weed on which they feed's in short supply, for it's been dry. The time has come, I can clearly see, to choose my path, my destiny. Take a deep breath and clear my mind, and a solution I will find. Whoopie-tie-yi-yay, whoopie-tie-yi-yo, I'll take my daughter to her rodeo. Life has a way of keeping you guessing. Friday's crisis is Monday's blessing, 'cause now it's fall. I will not call. Keep my fingers crossed, all is not lost. This coming spring some rain will bring, and after the rain I will plant cane instead of triticale. Yeah. And I sat across the table at supper from Rollin White, and I've been renting a drill from his son Brad for quite a few years. And up till this year, it had worked well. But this year, it didn't matter what I planted through that drill, none of it came up. So I'm thinking it could be mechanical. But life's full of surprises, and it keeps us guessing. And I guess, you're a Nebraskan when you can look at things and say, well, it sure could be worse. And we're just looking forward to next summer, and if it's worse, it's going to get really interesting. But somebody's still going to be here in 10 years and 100 years, and in 100 years, I'm not going to have to be worrying about it. But we are coming up on Thanksgiving season and Christmas season. I'll close out with this one. It's probably my favorite poem, one that I wrote quite a few years back when we were still calving in February. And I have kind of gotten that out of my system now. I guess part of it is because I've gotten old, and I think I could still do that, but I really don't want to find out. And the lessons learned kind of stick with you, and that, just amazing how many years go by. I'm getting clear back to when I first came back to the ranch, and Beth and I celebrated our 30th anniversary this summer, and we had gotten married, and everybody said, man, you're going to have a great calving season because you married a veterinary technician, and I was thinking this was Pretty wise on my part also. But that winter of 82, 83, somebody was there. It got a little nippy. And those heifers that I'd synchronized to calve in February of that year, we got a good stick on them. And we were prepared for February calving. We had a corrugated tin barn behind the trees. 2 trees. Half a mile apart and a mile to the north. And I was good at picking out which cattle needed to go in the barn. I would wait for protruding feet and try to get them in the barn before the feet fell off. First AI sired calf born on Pinecrest Ranch. 22nd of February, 20 below 0, 2 in the morning. And I couldn't have been any more excited than what I was. Oh man, it was great. That calf was on its feet on the bounce. I mean it. It hit the ground and it was up and it was looking for its first nourishment. And I thought, this is so cool. And then it stumbled into that corrugated tin wall. And she stuck. And I panicked. I grabbed her by the little, peeled her off. Left a furry spot on the wall and a bald spot on her flank. She was pre-saved for the C-section 2 years down the road. The next calf that stuck to the wall, I knew I had to come up with a better system. So I run around to the outside of the barn. The tin had thawed to 18 degrees below 0. And with the heel of my boot, kapoo! The calf snapped off. I had a system. And we repeated this process. We got them heifers all calved out. They went back, became the foundation of the herd I have. Many years later, the nutritionalist came out, millennial word for feed salesman. He said, RP, those cattle with the 3 in their ears are looking kind of thin and old. And I said, Dad, that's because they're old and thin. He said, they need some of my super duper liquid protein supplement block because I can see their ribs. I said, Ed, you're not seeing ribs. Them cows are still corrugated. An alarm sounds inside my head, and I force myself from a warm, dry bed with a lantern to aid my sight. I stumble into the frigid night. The snow raises its voice to complain as if my footsteps cause it pain. I hope all is well and I'll be back soon. My feet sound an introduction to a song that has no tune. Very few men get the chance to take a night check on the ranch. Horned owl spreads its wings in flight, casts shadows on the snow so bright. I say it's me when he questions who, and still he asks me, who are you? Beneath star-filled sky and crescent moon, he sings a verse in a song that has no tune. The coyotes sing without refrain, a haunting chorus of pleasure and pain. The damsels whistle, their suitors fight, and voices rise into the night with neither bass nor treble clef. I praise my Lord that I'm not deaf. Beneath star-filled sky and crescent moon, they sing the chorus of the song that has no tune. A heifer seems alarmed by her offspring's birth. She jumps to her feet to prove her worth, tries to warm the calf with her hot breath. He must rise soon to ward off death, and now she dries it with her tongue and hums a song of encouragement to her young, and he's on his feet and nursing soon, furnishing rhythm for the song that has no tune. The cold night air, it stings my face. Cold tries to stop time in its place. And then I wonder if I know, is this now or 1,000 years ago, reappearing like the land of Brigadoon, this ancient song that has no tune? Now some will say the life I talk of is past. I assure you, friends, I am not the last to herd the stock that grazed God's earth. It was shepherds first told of his son's birth, and they were the first to tell the world on herdsmen his blessings are still unfurled. And if our Savior tarries, though I believe he's coming soon, stockmen 1,000 years from now will know the song that has no tune. Thank you very much.